Welcome back, Bee Shifters. I'm your host, John Vance. Today we are hanging out with Jeff King, who is a Blue Card lead instructor, and he also heads up professional development for Blue Card. On top of that, he's a Houston firefighter who's a captain there. He was in the training bureau, but now back out in the field as a safety officer. He's going to talk about the Houston Fire Department implementing Blue Card, how to administer Blue Card in a very large urban department. We also talk about instructor credibility and transfer of command and how we train our next officers. We're also joined today by Nick Brunacini, who's hanging out with us as well. So please enjoy this episode of Bee Shifter. Just to start off with, how did you personally get involved in Blue Card? What was your first involvement?
My first involvement came in 2012. At the time, we had an assistant chief who was then over professional development, Michael Casey with the Houston Fire Department, wanted me to take a look at the Blue Card program. He gave me access to the online program, wanted me to take a look at it and kind of give my opinion on what it was. I had just moved in to professional and career development within the organization. I was out at the training academy, so I took a look at the program and really liked what I had to see. And it wasn't for about 4 years later till we had a new assistant chief, which was at the time Kevin Alexander, who finally got us into a position where we could start actually pursuing moving forward with the Blue Card program.
And your involvement since then has escalated quite a bit in your organization. So from that beginning time to where you are now, what has transpired in there to get your fire department's involvement to the point that it is now?
So I think our involvement, and really my role in it, has been just a cog in the wheel. For me to be able to be a part of this program and introducing this program to the Houston Fire Department has been an honor. But it's not really one that falls on my shoulders. I will say that without Terry Garrison as our fire chief at the time, without having Kevin Alexander and Mike Casey as individuals, Richard Mann as another executive assistant chief, as people who saw value in the program and wanted to move it forward, it wouldn't happen. I mean, it just wouldn't happen. You have to have all the stars to align for an organization of 4,100 people to be able to put something like this together. So my job has really served as the program manager. That's what I've done. Part of my job has been securing funding through the Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program through FEMA. We've secured funding to at least 3 different grants at this point. We got a grant that allowed us to do all of our chief officers, all of our company officers, and all of their incident command technicians. And then we went back and started grabbing all of our engineer operators, all the people who are drivers in our program, but also have the ability to ride up in higher classification. So we are on our 3rd grant right now, and that includes the second half of our engineer operators, which is around 550, almost 600 folks that are in the program right now in different stages of online and certification lab.
So as far as the American Fire Service goes, is Houston the largest fire department right now as a Blue Card user, as far as we know, or is that?
I would not be able to answer that question. I would assume that'd be a question that Josh might be able to answer. But I can tell you that over our period since 2016, that we will have certified roughly 2,200 members as incident commanders.
That's amazing. That is truly amazing. So what are the pitfalls in a large system like that, getting it implemented and the ongoing management? So, because there might be some people who are listening from a large fire department, and what I always hear about Blue Card is, it won't work for us because we're this entrenched organization, or we have these old habits. So what would you say to somebody like that who might be sitting there going, it won't work for us? How did you make it work at Houston?
Well, again, it was part of a great team effort by all accounts. And I was one person who was in a position where I could facilitate some of what we did with the program. We had everybody and instructors from deputy chiefs. We had some, again, Chief Alexander, Richard Mann. They were both executive and assistant chiefs at the time who were instructors. We had 3 deputy chiefs that were instructors, a 4th one that became a deputy that was an instructor at the time, a number of our district chiefs. We also included a number of senior captains and captains in the organization. So we had people up and down the rank from an officer standpoint who are involved. Right now, we probably sit at about 36 instructors within our organization. We use 4 or 5 other instructors that are tied to other departments around the Houston area as instructors. So we probably have about 39, 40 folks that we rotate in to help run this program and help teach this. And that's really the key, is having enough people to be able to keep the momentum going and have people that have enough background in the fire service that when they get up in front of a group of members, that there's respect attached to their name. And that's huge. It's really hard to do this without people up and down the line kind of buying into the program and wanting to be a part of what's going on.
I see that all the time. If you don't have credibility with an instructor, it's one thing for us to train an instructor as a blue card instructor, but it's another thing if you don't have somebody with some credibility, some gravitas behind what they're doing, it's not going to work, right?
No.
And Nick might be able to speak to this. I mean, we were talking earlier today. If you don't have the chiefs on board, is blue card going to work in an organization if it's only captains and down?
Yeah, that's a challenge with it, is especially in a lot of smaller fire departments, is it seems like the fire chief's best friend is the training captain, because you can pick who you want, and it's, somebody who's like-minded, and they're going to help you get everybody going in the right direction. Well, the problem with a program like this is not the problem, it's just the fact of the thing, is blue cards, it's the strategic part of it. So it's chiefs at most fire departments that end up taking command of the thing and being the strategic presence. Well, it's very difficult if you have a training division that is entirely staffed with company officers. So what they're doing is they're presenting new material to the chief officers of, this is what your new job looks like. Well, that kind of upsets the cart with, the ranks, the paramilitary structure that the fire service so richly enjoys. So, as a battalion chief, I just put myself in the same boat as if I'm showing up to a training session and there's some company officer that's going to tell me how I'm going to do my job. I'm like, well, first of all, you have less rank than I do. You've been here less time. You've been to less fires. Why are you the one? So to what Jeff was saying is it's got to come from the top. Because if it comes from the fire chief, the battalion chief has no choice in it. Even if a captain's delivering it. But if that's the way you're going to do it, I would encourage the fire chief to start the class off and let everybody know this is what we're doing. In fact, there is a tremendous story about a good friend of ours named Josh Bloom, who was a captain in the training division, right? He gives the blue card message to everybody, and they let him know, we're chiefs, you're a captain, you can kiss our ass. Josh's boss made him, I think, the chief of operations the next day. So he outranked all those people whose asses he doesn't have to kiss no more. Mm-hmm. So he shows up like the next week and says, okay, I'm your boss. This is what we're doing. Do we have any questions? Well, see, that switched it enough that they didn't have any. That's, yes, sir, we understand. This is what we're doing. So, I mean, that's kind of a aggressive example, but that fire department is doing blue card today, and that's 7-8 years later, and they're one of they're doing it as well as anybody at this time. So I think that's really what you have to do is if it doesn't come from the top, it's not going to work. And we see a lot of fire departments where they stop it, they start it, they stop it, they start it. They want to do it, but they can't do it. They want to do it, they can't do it. Well, a lot of that has to do with the leadership.
There's been a few times we've done train the trainers, and I've always been impressed by that fire chief that comes in, and he's very administrative. He's not going to be delivering service in the field, but he gets up in front of the class day one before we even start and say, look, guys, this is what we're doing now. You got to get on board with it. 100% support. And then even if they leave the room, just setting that tone, that 10-minute speech, then everybody knows. But if it's a captain who's trying to roll it out and they don't have support from up above, it's going to struggle, right?
Well, and especially in smaller places, the fire chief just expects the training captain to do it. And okay, now that they're all trained, you have to do it now. And you're like, well, no, that doesn't always work.
So back to Houston, which I think this was a good sidebar because it's really a good example of implementation of Blue Card. And a lot of people ask that a lot of times. I mean, I get that question all the time. So back to Houston, your implementation, what was the genesis of this? Why did you guys even look at Blue Card, and what was going on with the Houston Fire Department at the time?
I think one of the most honest reasons that we can give you for looking at it and moving forward when we move forward with it was coming out of the Southwest End fire and looking at the NIOSH line of duty death report. And in that report, there were a number of references specifically to Alan Brunacini, looking at fire command and looking at the 8 functions of command and implementing that as an organization. And that was one of the first times that you actually saw them specifically referencing a specific program. This is what organizations need to do to prevent these sort of command-related issues. And you see it now even in much greater senses where they are specifically referencing aspects of the Blue Card program. You will see in line of duty death reports our strategic decision-making model in there being discussed. You will see them referencing Blue Card SOPs in the program being discussed. You will see them referencing the Fire Command textbook, all of as things to help organizations build, reinforce, and enhance that incident command that they have within their organization. So that was really, I think, the largest impetus for us to get involved with it. And doing so was something that was an arduous task to take on, but we approached it in a very simple mindset that once we had, and both of you guys were part of these original trainers that came in. We came in for 2 consecutive weeks. We originally trained up 24 people to be instructors. And you guys came in for that, and your dad came in for it, and it was wonderful to be a part of that as well. But in the minute those were over, we got a group of us together downtown, and we talked about how do we implement this? What does this look like? What verbiage can be kept? Do we need to change some things? Do we need to modify some stuff to make things work? And as you go through the process and you look at it, and everybody says, well, we have to change this, we have to change that. The reality is it's a complete and total system. And it's a system that's been vetted for years. And the idea that you need to change it or tweak it is really not there. That's kind of a false sense that probably plays back on our egos a little bit to have to go back and reevaluate. So we took it and we made some simple modifications, some changes to some language and a few other things, and had an agreed upon sense of what we thought the day one PowerPoint was going to look like. We made those changes and what the CTCs were going to look like, what our command training centers were going to look like. And then we started putting things together and rolling it out. And that was really the biggest part, to have everybody up and down the command staff, along with frontline folks, to be involved with the process of what this is going to look at and agree upon it. And that was getting that consensus was probably the biggest piece to us moving forward. And then we started implementing what that plan would look like and how we would roll it out in an organization as big as ours.
So what was your time frame for this? Because this is not overnight.
No, it's not overnight. But what you do come into is some time constraints when you deal with the Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program that's put together from FEMA. What you get from DHS is that's usually a year. Once you get the funding and the monies have been transferred, you usually have 365 days to get everybody through the program. So when you go seeking grants to be able to do that, you've got to make sure that you have logistically the ability to finish what you need to finish in the time frame that you've told them you're going to finish. Now, every year that we have done it, we have been met with some sort of environmental problem, whether it's been a hurricane or rains or whatever it happens to be that's pushed the program back. We've been able to get extensions, but we've always finished the program when we were actively involved with it within the time frame that's been designated. We've also used, anything that we could to help us facilitate our direction in the program.
So you, like me, this is your part-time job, doing Blue Card on the road and getting out and doing train the trainers. And you mentioned something earlier about tweaking it. Everybody wants to put their tweaks on it. And I don't know if Nick has an opinion on this too. How much tweaking, really, can you do to this program?
personally, I will tell you is that when you look at it and you go through it void of any preconceived ideas, and you go into it with an open heart and an open mind, there's really not anything to change. Like we said earlier, this is a program that has been around for a very long time. It's been field tested in organizations of all sizes, all across the country, all around the globe. This is a program, as we talked about it today in our class with the folks here in Minnesota. Blue Card lives in that command function number 7 realm. We live in that world where you are constantly reviewing, evaluating, and revising, making sure that you are able to deliver the best quality programming that you have as it applies to incident command training. So living in that state, you're always trying to make sure you're doing the best. So there's not a lot to tweak. I think it comes from everybody, well, how do we make this ourselves? How do we do this? How do we integrate this? The easiest thing that you can do is adopt the program. You're talking about the 8 functions of command. You're talking about a critical fire-based deployment system. You're talking about the integration of the strategic decision-making model. Vocabulary and words, those go in and out depending on where you're at, but the system itself doesn't need tweaking. It's quite effective and it does a good job.
I think one of the reasons for that, though, too, is from day one, it's been a continuous improvement of Blue Card. I mean, when you look at when it started, Nick, it was a 5.5-day train the trainer. It was a 50-hour online program, and it continues to get refined and tweaked on the Blue Card side of things. Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys are taking care of that.
Well, it's all based on fire command and command safety. So one of the things the original author of it did, my dad, is he made that management model where you figure out what the work is, you train everybody to do the work, you revise the outcome of that work, and then you plug those into the system again, so you keep the system up. So really, Blue Card came about as we used that system in our fire department for, I don't know, the whole time I was there, 25 years probably. And then we had, Houston did it off the Southwest Hotel fire. We did it off the Southwest Supermarkets fire. Terry Garrison should never go to a fire in any building that has Southwest in the name because he was at both of those. So he knows better than anyone. So what happened is we took the existing fire command program after that fire, and we pretty much tore apart. Well, the operations manual, first of all, is when that happened, we really didn't have a very effective standard company work cycle, as an example. So we made a bunch of changes over that recovery process. And I'm going to say it took us at least a year and a half of like a forensic examination of what we just did in general at the scene of structure fires, where we started making decisions about this is why this happened, this is why this happened. And so everybody says you go back to the basics, but that was the thing we had to do, is we had to fix kind of some of those task level things. And then that was the impetus for Blue Card. That's really where Blue Card came from. So that recovery process got named Blue Card at a symposium somewhere by one of the speakers. And he just threw that out there as he was pissed off at the federal government and Red Card. And he's ranting and raving that we need something for the urban service. We need Blue Card. And I remember sitting next to my old man. He hit me. He says, hey, he just named the program. Okay, what the hell? It's blue instead of red. In fact, what I wanted to do after that is we went and got all the business stuff, the trademark and all the rest. And at the same time, I talked to my dad. I said, we're going to trademark Red Card, and we can hold them hostage then. And no, we won't do that. Please, you're starting a war. We're B shifters. That's what we want to do, is fight. So that's kind of nothing was off the table. Everything. It was like this, that, and the other thing. Now, this is a fire department that like 10 or 12 years. You talked to Jeff Griffin last. He fell through a lightweight tile roof. The fire chief said, we're not doing this anymore. This is not an effective thing to do at the scene of structure fires. It doesn't produce any benefit for us. So we weren't opposed to changing things that we saw were counterproductive to providing a higher level of service, especially at the seat of structure fires. So that's kind of where the blue card came from, was just improving the existing system we had. And like you said, it hasn't stopped. It has been revised, I don't know, probably at least 5 major revisions in the last 11 or 12 years. So the UL came out with their stuff. It all got aligned. So when we first started Blue Card, there was ventilation. You had every possible ventilation choice in the thing. So every one of our sims had a vertical ventilation to it. Well, you look at the science and everything else more and more, and you think, well, that's not a good use of your resources. It's better to do this. So really what we're doing is trying to figure out what is the quickest, most efficient way to control the fire, period. Well, you look at the science today, and you can do it now. Better than I was when I was working 10, 12 years ago. Is with the modern science, you get, I think, better results at the same. So it's just trying to implement that. And most people do it you got to match the strategic part to the task level part. So like the UL stuff, the F-star stuff that Houston did, that's all good firefighter 1 and 2 and fire behavior stuff. But you got to mesh that with the incident management part and the strategic element. So and that just validated the program more. You got a strategic level, you got a tactical level, and a task level. And those have always got to mesh at the incident scene. You get your best outcomes then.
What is F-star?
Fire safety through advanced research. It was a grant-funded program that was using some of the UL, some of the NIST information to push out some of the fire science in it through a different medium.
What do you find in your role now with Blue Card, Jeff? With you're revising things and aligning things. What has been your biggest challenge with that as you dove into the curriculum management end of things?
I think the biggest challenge has been looking at where we are and understanding some of the things that Nick was just talking about. The modern fire dynamics information that has come out of UL and NIST over the last 10, 12, 15, 20 years has really changed how people view the job of firefighting. And we want to make sure that we are able to integrate this information at the strategic, the tactical, and the task level. But we also have to make sure that we keep the program true to what it is, and that's being an incident command training program. So we don't want to get overladen with too much science, because that's not why they're there. They're there to learn the incident command process. So trying to walk that fine line between that information that is really critical for individuals to understand at all 3 levels of command, and then meshing that with what we're trying to deliver from that incident command training standpoint, that's probably the most challenging. I'm very much looking forward to the 3rd edition of Fire Command coming out and being able to integrate some of this new information into the program and what we're delivering, on a weekly basis, it seems like now, through the Train the Trainer program.
You've had a lot of firsthand experience with line of duty deaths, and knock on Formica, I haven't. Where do you see the alignment with Blue Card and that prevention of line of duty death?
Yes, as a member of the Houston Fire Department, I can say that we have suffered. We have suffered quite a lot from 2000 to 2014. We've had a number of line of duty deaths, the largest of them being what we had with the Southwest End. Now, having gone through the process we are still in the baby step process of getting all the members we want to have certified, and even have some of these members that have been certified, trying to get them recertified, the ones that are wanting to continue to do that. You can see a difference. We can see a difference. I'm very blessed where I work. I work now no longer in the academy and the training, but I work out in the field on the southwest side of town as a safety officer. And I run with a number of chiefs who are both instructors in the program, and a number of other chiefs who are just really quality chiefs. And we can hear the changes. I've heard Blue Card on, all of our structure fires, but implemented on high rises. I've heard it implemented on MBAs. I've heard it on an extrication box. I've hearing it and seeing what it's done to the front end of our fireground operations, I think has really been beneficial for us. Even if we were to reduce it down to the most simple terms of having a solid initial radio report, a good follow-up report, and giving that first-in company officer, that IC number one, the ability to assign a couple of companies has really done great things for us. And more importantly, what it has done is we're seeing a number of chiefs at this point who will come on location. They'll mark on location with dispatch, with OEC, let everybody know that they're there. And if it's a non-escalating event, they're allowing company officers to manage those one or two companies. They're giving them that opportunity to function in that IC role, to feel the weight of that role, and to handle the responsibility. And maybe not for today's fire department, but for where these folks are going to be when they get their cross bugles, when they get their white shirts, as they continue to promote, we're going to have a stronger organization. For me, when you look at Blue Card and you look at Fire Dynamics and you look at some of the things that we've been lucky enough to try to implement and institute within the Houston Fire Department, it wouldn't happen without the help of a number of people to be able to get us into that position. But it's not about today. It's not about the totality of my career. It's about those people that are coming in as firefighters now who have, 20 to 30 years in their career in front of them, and setting a foundation that will be better for them as they continue to promote than every generation. And I think that's what every firefighter that's ever worn the badge wants to do, is leave the organizations, leave the department, leave the fire service better than it was when you got there. And even if they're just little changes, that's what you want to do.
Nick, you did that a lot with Jeff first hit on with leaving a captain in charge if you didn't have to take command. I mean, you don't have to take command, right?
No, you don't have to. Probably half of the fires I responded to as a chief, I didn't take command of. You got there, they had the fire knocked down, it was conversion. They had an all clear. They really didn't need to. There was no more IDLH, basically. It had gone away, mostly. So those kind of things, you'd leave it with them. In fact, it was, and you would mark on scene, Battalion 3's on the scene. You'd contact the IC and let them know, hey, I'm here and you've done an excellent job. And you didn't tell them that on the radio, but I'm going to keep it with you. And off he goes. In fact, what happened is early on when I was at BC, you would take it because that's what you thought I'm supposed to do. And so I took command of fires that were out, and somebody would, not the IC, but some other company would ask me something over the tactical channel. I have to go back to the old IC to get the answer. And I thought, why am I taking command? This guy knows more about it than I do. Just leave it with the first in captain if that's the current situation with this. So it just worked out better. And I wasn't big on going to stations just to drop the mail off and visit. I didn't think that was my role as a BC. And it was a busy enough battalion where I could see everybody in the battalion at least every week to 10 days on a call. So we would put all of our shit in the back seat, and we would, as we go on calls, we would do business with the companies then. So it gave you a way. I liked fires where they kept command. I could get there, leave it with them. You get out, you start interviewing the people on the scene, just seeing how things went. You're starting the critique, basically. Once you broke bread with everybody, before you leave, you get together for 3 to 5 minutes and everybody, hey, this happened, this happened, this happened. That's nice. You guys have a nice shift. We'll see you next time. So it just, I found the act of just performing our jobs together kind of united everybody in a different way that wasn't so organizational and formal. It kind of put you back into the cult a little bit, if you will. So,
and the captains appreciate that. When you let a captain, not in an escalating incident, but in an incident that's under control. And I did a survey at my department when I first got there, and the captains were saying, we're a Mother May I fire department, which, I took to heart. And what can we do to not be that? And we already trained them with Blue Card, but we started allowing them to really do their jobs and be captains. And I said at that point, as chief officers, we're here to support you. So, and I don't know who said it. I don't know if it was your dad or somewhere in Blue Card, we said, we only transfer command to improve it.
Yeah,
right?
that was in the first issue of Fire Command.
Yeah. So we've stuck to that at my department. It's like, we can improve command, we're going to transfer it. If we're not going to improve it, and it's going to be better off with the captain, leave it with the captain, because it gives them the experience. They own it anyway, and I'm here to support you. If you need me to go to the panel and silence the alarm or go to a riser room or talk to the occupants or whatever, that's what I'm going to do. You assign me to that. And then, if we're an IDLH and it's escalating, of course, we're going to take it from the outside because that's what we have to do. But that's very empowering to our company officers to be able to operate that way.
Well, and that was something, as you work together, as you kind of form these agreements and relationships. So they get used to the fact that, okay, he's going to get here, and if he thinks it should stay with me, he's going to leave it with me. Well, so the caveat was, hey, if you got something going on the inside and you don't want to be command anymore, then just tell me you need to take it right now and why, and then I'll jack it up to whatever you're facing at the moment. So it was kind of a two-way street there. I don't know, it just worked out better. It was more chill to do it that way. But like you said, if it was escalating, there were sometimes I get to the scene, it was like, no, you just shut up. I'm going to take command right now, and this is what needs to happen next. And see, that's part of the safety piece that we use on the incident scene, is you got that mobile IC that's putting that initial operation in place. Well, once they go into the building, the reason they can go in is that's based on the fact that there's a BC coming in right behind them that's getting ready to take command. So they're inside. A lot of times when they would duck in, I would see them when I'm pulling up to the scene. And it was perfect timing. In fact, it's almost like a visual thing with them. As they're pointing, say, yeah, I got it, I'm taking it right now. And then you go to the alarm and say, hey, I've just taken command, blah, 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 blah. So it was a very effective system for that. You just had to do enough. It was Goldilocks level command. I'm going to just put enough in to fix whatever we're doing here. Because we don't show up to the scene to take command or to justify our staffing or any of those other reasons. We show up to the scene of structure fires to put the fire out. See, we're the fire department. We should act like the fire department. We have our best success when we deal with the fire. And there was a while where my dad said, well, there's other things going on and you need to focus on this and that and the other thing. You think, yeah, okay, all that's important, but no. During my career, it kept getting reinforced. Focus on the fire. You got to find where the fire is and then destroy it. Move it out of the building, and then you'll own the building again. So you got to get in concealed spaces and here and here and here. So that was... We became big on the fire attack. In fact, that's what bought the mail for us during my whole career, is we would do silly stuff, but we were very, very prompt about putting water on the fire.
Was Phoenix ever a search ahead of the hose team and a search department? Or
the first 7 years of my career, I worked on engine companies, and we searched on the way to do fire control. We didn't do fire control so we could search. So anything between our point of entry and the seat of the fire got searched. And then the fire was always, again, that was the reason. That may be the difference between Houston and Phoenix, is we attacked the fire immediately, and then you had a battalion chief on the outside coming up and backing that up and saying, okay, your fire attack didn't work. You need to get out of the building right now. So that's kind of that second IC comes in and saves the first initial operation from itself sometimes. But I mean, that's the way the system's designed and built to do. So if you don't have that second person coming in, you got to do something on the front end that pulls that IC out of the building, or say, however you do that. So, but that's incumbent on the community to fund our ability to do that. If they want the fire department to search buildings and put them out, operate in an IDLH, that requires a certain level of staffing and equipment and capability, deployment capability. If your department doesn't have that, I mean, we did blue card training today. There were departments in there that run 2-person staffing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first 8 minutes of the call, you've got 2 people on the scene. You're not going to do anything on the inside of that. I mean, you can't. It doesn't make any sense.
Or you've got more apparatus than personnel.
Yeah.
We see that a lot. That's kind of how it is in the upper Midwest in a lot of places. And I've always said to elected officials, what kind of fire department do you want to buy? Do you want us to hold it to the room of origin, the building of origin, or the block of origin? And you get to choose. I mean, it's like a menu, you know, that this is how much it's going to cost you for room of origin. This is what it's going to be for building of origin and block of origin. Now, it's hard for them to pony up. I mean, they you know, especially in places where they've gotten by for nothing. I always say, well, I don't say this. I'm actually stealing this from George Esbenson, who says Minnesota spends on the fire service like Mississippi spends on education. We are 47th in the country in this state on what we spend on the fire service. So how are you guys at your department, Jeff, with searching ahead? And were you doing that, or were you water on the fire, or what?
We've always been a very aggressive interior fire department. So fire attack has always been something that was prominent with what we wanted to do first. We've had companies that have searched ahead of a line. We've had ladder companies that have searched without the protection of a hose line in place before, but we're getting better. We're moving toward doing it under the protection of a hose line. And you see a lot of that being implemented in different spots in different districts. And look, there are always going to be people in an organization of our size that are naysayers or want to do things differently or want to maintain an old way of doing things. And that's kind of part of the process. But again, it's about staying the course and trying to create a better tomorrow. And as long as you keep introducing it to new folks and giving everybody the exposure, these, you know, we will have done 1,200 roughly engineer operators, drivers in our program. Well, those drivers will all most likely become captains at some point. They'll become senior captains at some point. They'll become districts and deputy chiefs at some point. They are the future of what this fire department and this community holds. So if we can give them solid information as they are growing in their careers, it is my hope that they will continue to choose that solid information when they're in positions to make calls later on when it's their opportunity.
That's pretty cool that you guys are doing that. So you're training your driver operators right now on Blue Card with the anticipation that they're going to start moving up.
Well, one of the things that we noticed when our first iteration of the program was that there was an element of what we rolled out that was short-sighted. We only did captains, senior captains, district chiefs, and deputy chiefs. We trained the incident command technicians, the ones who drove the chiefs, but we've got roughly 11 to 1,200, depending on where you are at the time of year and within the organization, engineer operators who have the ability to ride up in any higher classification. So if a captain is off, that engineer operator could end up riding the seat. Well, these are people who could be showing up and have to assume command as IC number 1 on the event. They could have to show up and provide that initial radio report. So not training them initially was probably, again, very short-sighted on our part, but we went back and secured the funding and then continued to roll it out with them. And we are finishing our group right now. We have also applied for another grant to get roughly 150 folks that will be the new engineer operator. So our goal is, as you get promoted to engineer operator, to bring you through the Blue Card program. As you promote in each rank, to be able to have you come through and do some more simulation work at that rank. So just keep people actively involved for a long period of time. And that's the plan that we have in front of us right now. Hopefully it'll be the plan that be maintained when we move on. So
you're working on our curriculum with Blue Card. You're also in a very large metropolitan fire department, having a big part of the implementation, rollout, continued sustainability of the Blue Card program there. But we see all these returning departments, right? We see people who they did it, they expired, and then they come back. How can we help them or what advice would we give so they just stay with it? I mean, and I don't know if there is advice, but it seems to me like it's a lot of work to drop it and then come back.
It's a lot more work, and I don't think it really, and to have the conversation within the construct of something that Alan Brunacini created, there's an element of it that's a customer service piece. And not just customer service from Blue Card out to the customers, but the customers that are internal to each organization. You know, the fire service is notorious for the one and done. We need to do this training program. We did the training program. We check our box. We go on to the next thing. Well, the reality is that doesn't create any longevity. That doesn't create any staying power. That doesn't really create any muscle memory. You know, we talk about it in the Mayday class that we do. We talk about Malcolm Gladwell and his idea, the 10,000 hour rule, that you need the 10,000 hours to develop that professional setting. And part of what we do with the program initially is to help them get into the program. But if they don't stay in it, it's just going to go away like any other skill set. It's perishable. So it's much easier for organizations to take care of their customers, which is their employees, keep them involved with it, have them go through the recertification process, than it is to leave the program and try to come back. Because really what you end up doing is you create a lot of animosity, a lot of negative feeling. We've got a class that we're leading right now, where we've got at least 6 people that were introduced to the program probably 8-9 years ago, became certified, they walked away from it, and now they're all coming back into it and having to become instructors in it. And you can see the frustration that is on their face, and it's a lack of foresight. It's a lack of fortuity just to stay involved with what's going on. And I think that's my biggest thing I would recommend to anybody is just stay the course. If it's something you believe in, stay engaged with it and keep moving forward.
You don't see fire departments that are saying, we're not going to do any more paramedic or EMT training. We're done with it. We're good enough. Jesus Christ, Jimmy started 27 IVs last shift and did 87 intubations. You don't have a choice. The only service that the fire service provides that has no formalized training is firefighting. You got firefighter 1 and 2, you got standards up the yazoo, but there's nothing mandatory in it at all. So you can be the most completely bankrupt, incompetent human being that was ever born, and you can be the IC in charge of 30 of your fire department's firefighters in a building that is getting ready to fall down on them, and you require 0 hours of anything to do that, to manage that operation. You take a blood pressure on an unconscious person laying in the street, is you have to be certified as a medical professional to do that. It's upside down. It always has been, and I think it's always going to be, because we're in charge of the fire part of it. We're not in charge of the medical part. That was the hospitals, the doctors and the ERs are in charge of that. The hazmat team, that's the chemist who works for the fire department's in charge of that. You don't have a choice. If you don't go to CE, you're not on the hazmat team anymore. Technical rescue, same thing. Only place it's not applied is in structural firefighting. Where do all the firefighters die? At the scene of EMS calls, hazmat calls, TRT calls? It's fires. There's a reason for it.
I think that's going to change, and this is kind of a far-fetched conspiracy theory maybe, but I think as we see qualified immunity changing with law enforcement, I think it's going to change for us too. I mean, I don't think we're going to get the free pass that we've enjoyed forever pretty soon, because the public's changing, and they're not going to put up with it.
They've been doing Blue Card in Canada, right? In Canada, they will put the fire chief in jail if you have a line of duty death that you shouldn't have had. You can be criminally charged for that. There was a good-sized fire department that was doing Blue Card, and one of the labor representatives from the fire department stopped it pretty much. The same individual was promoted to the rank of assistant chief of operations. Guess what his first official act was?
Start up blue card.
You will not take command of anything unless you're blue card certified. Because he knew if something bad happens, they're going to come get me. So I mean, it was good, bad, or otherwise. It's what happened, and they started blue card again. So you just kind of scratch your head with it. See, and you don't have to do blue card. You can do incident management on your own, but you got to do something. I mean, it's like, well, no, we're not going to do blue card because we don't like incident command. I mean, well, then do your own incident command stuff. I mean, that's nobody's stopping that. NIMS is still available in the world.
Oh, and you have a lot of organizations that say that, hey, well, we could have built this ourselves. We could have done this ourselves. Well, you can look at your badge and you can look at your crest and your insignia and see how long you've been around, and you haven't built it. And it's not just the incident command piece. You're talking about an entire curriculum package that's designed to back up, to train, to validate, to do everything that you're wanting to do. And that doesn't exist somewhere else. They're not going to create all those components, the continuing education piece. More importantly, they're not going to be able to create a program that's going to be tied to an accreditation process where you can get college hours for going through the program.
That's true. And they're all going to develop it. And if my aunt had nuts, she'd be my uncle.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, now I'm going to do the business side. You can't create it cheaper than you can get it from blue card. It just isn't possible. 100% it isn't. I know what it costs to develop it. And there's 50 years, millions of calls it's been used on. And like you said, it's been improved from the moment it's been made. The original fire command was made because Alan Brunacini joined a fire department in 1958 that for the first 10 years of his career tried to kill him 4 or 5 different times. They succeeded 1.5 of them. And he lived through it, and he says, I'm not putting up with this anymore. This is bullshit. No. And he became, well, that's just who he was. He became the fire chief of the 6th or 7th largest municipal fire department in the country. That was unheard of at the time. If you were a 20-year-old kid, you could be a fire chief in Podunk 2-engine town. But you didn't get to, hell, you were lucky if you could make it to captain at that point in your career. So at 20 years, he came up and he says, no, we're changing this for the better. And the B shift was behind him the whole time. They thought this crazy son of a bitch is going to save us from the masters up in the ivory tower. So he had the full blessing of the crazy people. In fact, when he promoted to battalion chief, he was an A shifter up to that point. And they said, okay, Wonder Boy, we're going to see how you do in Battalion 3 B shift. And they sent him to the land of zombies. And the zombies rallied around and they said, we will not let them hurt you, our liege. We will get it on us instead. And they did. They packed him. He was going to school. He was trying to get his master's. They said, nah, you just need to go do it and we'll take care of this. And we'll call you if we need you. So, I mean, they kind of broke bread together. And then when he got promoted, that was it. He was on a mission from God.
A righteous mission.
Yeah, we're all in this room because of it.
Yeah. You guys have anything else to add before we wrap this one up?
I think it maybe another time or another opportunity to discuss, what that implementation looks like for people and how they go about doing it, and the value of do we start with a guideline or a SOP? Do we run the program out first? How do we go about implementing? What does that look like? There's probably a lot of questions that some folks might have at some point, and maybe it's something that we could answer for them. And
let's get that next time. Next time around, we'll talk about that. All right.
Perfect.
Jeff King, Nick Bernasini, thanks for hanging out on B Shift.
And thanks for having us, John Vance.
And that wraps up this episode of B Shifter. Thanks so much for listening in. If you liked what you heard and you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe. That way you get it in your inbox whenever there is a new B Shifter available. If you'd like to contact either Nick Bernasini or Jeff King, their contact information is located in the show notes. Until next time, thanks for listening to B Shifter. Please be safe.